Uh, Okay, and check the time. It's 3 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and hit broadcast so that folks can start to hear us now.
Seems official.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone who's joining. We're just going to be waiting a minute or two for all the participants to be entering the room. So we'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, looks like people are still joining. So we have 43 folks in attendance right now. And for the panelists, can you still see the PowerPoint up there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Richard Martinez, and I'm a psychologist at Texas State University's Counseling Center, and I will be hosting this webinar. We have 3 panelists from the Counseling Center who will be sharing their knowledge with us today. This 1-hour webinar will provide strategies for psychological coping and wellness, managing various responsibilities, and adjusting to online and distance learning. This information will be helpful for students in fostering academic resilience and success. In addition, this webinar will help provide resources for students adapting to academic, social, and environmental changes due to COVID-19. You will be asked to submit questions through the Q&A feature, and our panelists will answer as many of those questions as possible as they can at the end of the presentation. This presentation will also be uploaded to the Counseling Center's COVID-19 resources webpage for viewing afterwards. In addition to our 3 panelists, we have 2 ASL interpreters providing their interpretive services with us today. I will now allow our esteemed panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Colleen Conklin. I'm a clinician at the Counseling Center, and I am currently a psychology intern.
Hi, I'm Katie Kiner. I'm one of the other interns at the Texas State Counseling Center.
Hello, I'm Uriel, and I am one of the clinical interns at the Counseling Center as well.
Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. We will go ahead and get started.
Okay, so this is an agenda outlining today's presentation that we're giving you. And we'll be discussing worry and anxiety and what that can look like. We'll also talk about isolation and common side effects of this. We'll provide various thinking, psychological, physical, and social coping strategies, as well as provide strategies for online distance learning and managing various responsibilities. We'll also have a slide with a link to Counseling Center COVID-19 resources as well, and then we'll have a question and answer portion at the end. So we wanted to start with explaining some information about worry and anxiety. Worry is a way of thinking ahead that can leave us feeling anxious or apprehensive. And worry can be thought of as helpful or unhelpful. Helpful worry involves worrying about problems that need solutions right now. And given the concern about COVID-19 currently, helpful solutions include regular hand washing, social distancing, and physical isolation if you have symptoms. While unhelpful worry may look like thinking of the worst case scenarios and thinking you won't be able to cope with them, which is also called catastrophizing, such as thinking most people will die from this when that probably won't be the case. So while feeling worried is normal, worry becomes a problem when it stops you from living the life you want to live, or if it leaves you feeling disheartened and exhausted. So when that worry does become excessive, we tend to feel anxieties in our bodies. And some physical symptoms of worry and anxiety can include muscle tension or aches and pains, which can be felt in areas such as your shoulders, your neck, or even your chest. Other symptoms include restlessness and an inability to relax. You could have difficulty concentrating and focusing, difficulty sleeping, and feeling easily fatigued. Okay, Richard. So some sources of worry and anxiety include ambiguous situations, which are open to different interpretations, new or novel situations, since we have no prior experience to help us through those new experiences, and unpredictable situations where we feel uncertain about how things will turn out. All of these sources of worry and anxiety are relevant to our current situation brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. So it makes sense that many people may be feeling worried and anxious right now, since this is an unusual, new, and uncertain experience, which naturally leads us to feel worry and anxiety.
So next we're going to talk about coping with isolation, because that's something that may be new to a lot of folks. That's just a part of our lives right now and is bringing out a lot of new things that we just may not have anticipated as individuals and as a group. So I just want to normalize first just how normal it is to feel out of sorts when you are isolated. That just means you're so human, you desire contact, and you're wanting to be social with others, which is a healthy thing. So not feeling comfortable with isolation is completely normal and human. So there's nothing wrong with you if you're having a hard time with that. It's natural to want that contact. Also, you know, having a hard time with academic structure being different is also completely understandable. So kind of like Katie said, some of the common side effects on the next slide is, could you switch the slide, Richard, for me? Thanks. Fear and anxiety, depression and boredom, anger, frustration, irritability, or feeling stigmatized when you're sick, or when people are making judgments about where you're from or where you may have visited recently. All of these things can really change how we're dealing with daily life. A lot of folks are experiencing cycling emotions. So maybe you feel fear, happiness, boredom, sadness, all in the same day or even in the same hour, can make people feel a little dysregulated. And I just want everyone out there to know that this is something that a lot of folks are experiencing. This is something new that people haven't necessarily navigated before, and our emotions are kind of on the roller coaster with us. So having fears of the unknowns, just financial concerns right now, and just not having all your needs being sure to be met like they may have felt like they could be previously, all amps up all those feelings inside of us that can make us go all over the place. So next, we're going to talk about some coping strategies.
I'm so sorry to interrupt,
Mm-hmm.
but the student that we are interpreting for is saying that it is not on. She cannot see anything at all. I don't know if your chat feature, if you're getting any questions, but I don't think anybody else is able to join this session.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, ma'am. When I started, I just made sure she could see us and everything was clear. And she said no, that she is not able to view. So
we're getting feedback from the audience that they can see everything. So this might be something individual for that participant.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm
their
going to
settings.
jump off and see if I can help her get on.
Okay, thank you.
There
Sorry.
is a number of us on the top of the screen. So if pressing on the arrow to see Tracy might help.
Okay. Let me figure that out. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
It's
okay. All right. So we're talking about coping strategies. one of the things that could be helpful to do is to limit your news consumption right now. With things coming from every direction, it's important to rely on reliable sources. So the CDC or the Center of Disease Control or the World Health Organization are good ones for that. And if you want to watch other things, I think just being mindful of how it impacts you. So noticing how you feel afterwards, and then perhaps cutting down the amount that you're taking in if it leaves you feeling really anxious and having a lot of ruminating thoughts. You'll also want to balance your news intake with other activities. So while we're limited to not going to many places outside right now, you know, either listening to music, making music, reading, learning a language. I know you're all in school, so like, I'm not going to tell you to get crazy and learn 5 languages right now. Like, that's probably not a super realistic request, but you know what? If the spirit moves you, just go for it. But you know, finding hobbies and things to bring you a change in your day can be quite helpful. Also, creating and following a daily routine. So waking up at the same time, at least on the weekdays, and going to sleep around the same time, even if you don't have a class till 5 p.m., you know, trying to get up by 10 a.m., going on a 5-minute walk, you know, talking to a friend one time in the afternoon at least. You know, all those things can kind of keep us more regulated. So while it may not feel like your day has much structure right now, trying to build that in is really important. And while that sounds simple to do, it can be pretty hard when there's no accountability to do it. So I just want to encourage you this evening to sit down and make a schedule of what you want your day to look like. Like if you're hoping that you stretch, you know, for 5 minutes before you go to bed, and you can be flexible, but just try to make an outline for yourself, write it out if you're able to, and then try to stick with that. You know, even filling in time for watching Netflix and Hulu, or, you know, making that a slot of time where you're intentionally doing that can be helpful to keep you from having feelings of guilt, like you should be doing something else or you should be productive. Making sure you know, schedule that time in to just have some fun or to socialize too, as well as doing schoolwork if that's in your goals to do as well, which it probably is. All right, and also don't get too down on yourself if you don't do well on those goals the first time. So if you know, don't wake up by 10 a.m., don't get down on yourself. You can always try again the next day. Those things happen. We're all human, and this is a weird time. So just being gentle with yourself is something I think that's important to remember. All right, and then also just staying virtually connected to others can be really helpful with the isolation as well. There's lots of apps coming out right now. I'm not like being endorsed by them, although I wish I was. Like I wish I was cool enough to be endorsed by an app, but I'm not. But there's this one, what's it called? House Party. And so there's a house party, you can play games, you can do things like that. There's lots of options right now. Zoom, karaoke, if you want to like just get down with your bad self and sing some songs with friends and bring, you know, YouTube karaoke up on a shared screen, you know, get creative with it. But it could be easy to just text and try to have some face-to-face contact with people over virtual means, obviously. All right. And so continuing on with the coping strategies, I can't emphasize enough how important it is right now to sleep and eat well. And while that may be really hard if you're studying in your bedroom and your bedroom is now becoming this kind of intense space of thinking rather than the more relaxing space it may have been before, if you're able to try to get to bed at the same time, try to stretch, maybe have some tea, make a bedtime routine where you can get some sleep and find what works for you. On our website for the Counseling Center, we have lots of sleep hygiene techniques and all sorts of things for you to look up on there. Podcasts, like I could go on forever with how much we have resource-wise on there. But also trying to avoid excessive drug and alcohol use. I think being at home, potentially being bored, and also being stressed out, it's really easy to want to rely on quick and easy ways to feel calm. But long-term, those do mess with your sleep, which then can really bring down your ability to feel calm and to get your daily activities done. And it's just not a great habit to get into for reasons that I think a lot of folks understand. Also being gentle with yourself, that does, it is an available resource for a lot of people to cope with things. So by no means am I trying to shame anybody. It's just something to be curious about, and just check in with your relationship with alcohol and drugs right now, if that's kind of revving up a little bit. And if you think you need some more help, we have the counseling center, which can help with case management appointments. So we can get you scheduled with an outside provider to do virtual therapy if you prefer weekly. And we also have some short-term therapy options at our center. So just know that you're not alone and you don't have to deal with this alone. If you feel like, some basic coping strategies that we're sharing with you today are not quite enough, that is okay. And we can get you connected to someone if you need more. So now we're going to go into some thinking strategies. So like Katie said before, trying to not catastrophize and go to straight worst case scenario, it completely makes sense if your brain is trying to prepare for the worst case scenario. It makes your brain and body feel like it's revved up for a reason, and it makes you feel like you're doing something, but it's really counterintuitive or counterproductive. So trying to focus on what you can do and accept the things you can't change right now, like thinking of things that you feel grateful for during the day. So if it's a nice day out, being really mindful of that, looking at the sun, when your animal, if you're lucky enough to have an animal at home with you right now, really just being present with your animal. And thinking of the things that you're grateful for. You can write those down at the end of the day if you have the energy, or you can just think them through before you go to sleep. That also is really helpful for our mind. It sounds maybe a little cheesy, but it actually does release some serotonin. So get a little natural drug for you. And then practicing deep breathing. So this is something I was thinking we could take a moment and do it together, because it won't be as awkward since we're not all sitting in a room together doing like an eyes closed exercise. So deep breathing can really bring down your nervous system's intensity and kind of hit the pause and reset button. So if you're comfortable and you're in a space where you feel like you can do so, go ahead and take some deep breaths from your belly. And I'm just going to kind of slow it down so that we can all do that. I'm a little revved up from presenting. And go ahead and get in a comfortable space if you have one. So if you're on your bed or on a chair or on a couch, if you can just put your feet on the floor and feel the floor pushing back up into your feet, and get in a comfortable seated position. And go ahead and notice how the chair feels against your back and how the chair feels against your hand. If you put your hand on the material of the chair, you can even touch your device or your computer and notice how smooth it is. And as you continue to breathe from your belly, go ahead and notice what the temperature is like in the room for you right now. Notice if you can smell anything in the area or the absence of smell. And as you continue to breathe, notice the ground pushing up against your feet and how your body feels. So take a little body scan of yourself. And then if you're comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes for this or you don't have to. But imagine yourself outside, somewhere that you feel safe and comfortable, somewhere you've been before. And as you continue to breathe from your belly, take in what's around you in this visual. Notice the sky, notice the breeze, and feel the breeze against your face. Notice any birds in the air that you can hear or the rustling of leaves. And any thoughts that are coming into your mind right now that aren't related to this visual, go ahead and just notice them, tell them it's okay, and that you'll come back to them when you're done. And as you continue to breathe, notice the feeling of peace you have in this place. A feeling of peace looking at the waves or a river, wherever you are. And know that you can come back here whenever you need to. And when you're ready, go ahead and wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, maybe stretch your neck a little bit, and take a body scan of how you're feeling right now. And know that this is something you can do either with the help of different phone apps, or we have different podcasts on our website, or something you can simply do on your own. And even if you don't want to visualize something like being outside, just stopping yourself to breathe for a few seconds, like breathing from your belly. There's a quick thing called square breathing, where you can simply breathe in for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold that for 4 seconds. So let's just try that real quick if the visualization thing is just not for you. Okay, so we're all gonna breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and now hold for 4 seconds. And then do a recovery breath. And then you can do that as often as it feels comfortable to do so. But that has been researched to be effective in bringing people's anxiety and stress down as well. All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Uriel for this next section. But wishing you all well.
Thank you, Colleen. That was a lovely exercise. I feel so much more calm. All right, y'all. So I'll be covering the segment on self-compassion. And so really what I want to talk to you on this slide about is the 3 pillars of self-compassion. And so if you take a look at the first one. It talks about being able to regard yourself and treat yourself with kindness, care, support, and understanding. And you want to be able to do this particularly during times of struggle. This tends to be a sort of a collective experience amongst us all. And one way that I help clients in cultivating that space for themselves is if you can just think of how you would show up for a close friend that you really cared about, and really understanding, when you would show up for that friend, you would provide to the best of your ability kindness, care, and support. And so we really want to turn that inward. And one of the ways that you can do that is by really sitting down and kind of engaging in a self-inquiry and really assessing what it is that you're needing in that moment. May it be that you're needing physical touch, a hug, or you're needing a supportive friend to kind of show up for you, or you're needing to sort of set a boundary. And so really what you want to do is be able to assess that need and then attempt to meet that need. And on the second pillar of self-compassion, we move toward understanding that part of our experience, part of our struggle it's part of our common humanity. And so it's recognizing that all people are imperfect and that we lead imperfect lives. And so basically all that's saying is that we're all in this together, that we're all hardwired for struggle. And I think it's important to understand that we're not alone in that experience. So if we move on to the third pillar, that one is called engaging in mindfulness. And really what that's about is attuning to the present moment as it is happening in the here and now. And so oftentimes I'll encourage clients, if they're able to show up in the present moment with a sense of courageousness and presence. And so I say courageousness and presence because really we need to be really intentional about showing up in the present moment. Oftentimes when I'm working with other people, or even if I'm, dealing with something myself, is that where there's a tendency to kind of ruminate about the past or, worry about the future. And so showing up for really difficult moments in our life, we have to show up with a sense of courageousness. And so I realize that can be really taxing on individuals. And so oftentimes we'll avoid, or we'll come up with some other strategy to kind of move away from that struggle. And that's also okay, and that's also part of our self-compassion practice. But if you're able to kind of show up in every which way that you can, in the best way that you can. Okay, Richard, next slide. So on this slide, I want to talk to you a little bit about some resources that you have at your disposal. And so these resources are basically tools to help you engage your body, ways to practice being in the present moment, and finding ways to cultivate connection with others by using those resources. And so what I want to draw to your attention is that each of these resources that I'm about to talk about are interconnected and they build on one another. And so I want to touch base on the first one. So that one's called supportive touch. And so what we know about receiving or giving a supportive touch to someone or receiving it ourselves is that touch activates the care system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to calm down and feel safe when we're in a stress response or when we're in a state of fear or panic. And so what the research has talked about is that physical touch releases something called oxytocin. And so what that does is it provides us with a sense of security. It soothes our difficult feelings and it calms our cardiovascular stress. And so we go back to kind of soothing that stress response that might come about, particularly now in the state of in the time of COVID. And if we move on to the second bullet, we look at posture. And so I want to just kind of draw your attention to how you're holding your posture right now and kind of just do like a body scan. And are you noticing that your posture might be slumped, or is it droopy or collapsed? Or maybe it's on the other end of that spectrum where it's feeling a little bit rigid and tense. And then as you notice or you draw awareness to that posture, just notice how much tension you're carrying at different points of your posture or your body. And so what I want to sort of do here is if you can sort of compare, your posture when it's slumped or droopy or collapsed versus an upright, not rigid, but an upright and aligned posture. And so if you can kind of like do that on your own, you might notice the differences in emotions that might come up for you when you're when you're slumped versus when you're upright and aligned. You might notice that you have different thoughts or perhaps even degrees of self-esteem with each of those postures. And on the next one, I want to talk to you a little bit about boundaries. And so the way that I define boundaries is really exploring your personal space. And so boundaries are the invisible limits between you and another person. And knowing how your body communicates no, even when you verbally have given a yes. I'll give you an example. So let's say you were asked by a friend to do a favor for them. And you made a mental note and you said, no, I don't want to do that. But verbally you affirmed and you said, hey, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that favor for you. And in ways your body has communicated no. And so one of the ways that it does that is by, you might, tense your body, or you might use various facial expressions, either like narrowing your eyes or lifting your hands upward or outward, stomping or dragging your feet. Even in terms of when you're reaching out for support, that might come up as well. And so on the next bullet, we talk a little bit about the breath. So I think this is an important point to make, is that the breath is our lifeline. And so oftentimes when I'm working with folks in our practice, and even times when I'm noticing myself feeling a little bit stressed, is that I might notice that my breath is a little bit constricted, or maybe I'm, having a rapid breath. And so really what you want to do is you want to examine how you hold your body. In other words, how your posture is linked to your breath throughout the day. And so why is this important? And so if we're having a sloped or droopy or slumped posture, that is going to in some ways impede or restrict the oxygen throughout our bodies, which means that oxygen is no longer rushing to the brain as much as it needs to, or all the major organs within the body, which then will slow the body down. And so what I want, just as Colleen had mentioned before, is that a fuller, deeper breath signifies slowing down. It also means that we're being in the present moment. And so it helps us to be in the here and now. And so if we're in the here and now, then we can attend to ourselves and we can take care of ourselves. And so the last bullet I want to bring your attention to is examining how you reach out to others. And so typically when I'm working with folks, your ability to reach out to others for support, particularly when you're needing that support and when you're going through something that feels like a difficult time, is that much of your ability to do so is based on your predictions of how accessible and responsive others are toward you in the time of crisis or in the time that you're needing them. And so one of the ways that your body might signal to you in that moment that you're feeling pretty reluctant or mistrusting of the individual that you're reaching out for support, or maybe you're just feeling mistrusting of yourself and your capacity to reach out. And so you might put your palms up or your palms down, or you might have your elbow bent and held close to your body for security, or your overall musculature might be relaxed or rigid, or your shoulders might be curved in or pulled back. And so oftentimes I like to think about reaching out, or therapy as a form of reaching out. And so when I'm working with clients, oftentimes I'll be observing this kind of behavior in the room. And so oftentimes, I'll say to them, you might want to grab a small object, an object in the room right now, whether it be, the fidget spinner or, that heart, that squishy heart on top of the desk. And if that object represents support for you, I want you to go ahead and hold it in your hand. And so that'll provide a sense of reaching out, right? In the midst of sort of interacting with another human being where it might feel intolerable to kind of reach out for support in that moment. Okay, next slide, Richard. So on this slide, I want to do a brief exercise on self-compassion. So if you can find a comfortable space in your chair, in the same way that we kind of did it with Colleen, and if you can think of a situation in your life that was particularly difficult. I would imagine for some folks that time is now, and that time might actually cause you a significant amount of stress. And if you can just call the situation to your mind and see if you can actually feel the stress and the discomfort in your body. And so what I'm about to do is I want to invite you now to say to yourself, by going over the 3 pillars of self-compassion, is the first part is, I want you to acknowledge that this is a moment of suffering for you. You might not say that to yourself, but you might say, this hurts, or, oh gosh, this is stressful, or ouch, or, this is a lot right now. And so really that's drawing your attention to what's happening right now. So that's the mindfulness pillar. And on the second point, I want you to understand that what you're going through right now, that suffering is a part of life. Understanding that other people feel this way. You might say, I'm not alone in this. We all struggle in our lives. We're all hardwired to experience adversity. And sometimes I encourage clients to kind of put their hands on their heart. And so that puts the supportive touch into practice, right? And so if we can, find a place where we feel comfortable placing our hands, sometimes it might be on your cheek. It might be on your neck or on your chest or on your lap, wherever it is that you think might feel supportive. I would encourage you to employ that piece. And on the third pillar, you might want to ask yourself, what am I needing to hear right now to express kindness to myself? And so this is the part where you're inquiring about, what am I needing right now? Is there a phrase that speaks to you in a particular situation? Maybe it might be, may I give myself the compassion that I need right now? Or it might be, may I learn to accept myself as I am? Or may I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? May I get through this? Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Udiel. I love that self-compassion exercise. Okay. So we also wanted to provide some strategies for online distance learning, since that's the learning modality that all students are using right now. Some strategies that might be helpful are to create a schedule and take breaks when possible. Learning online can be pretty difficult since many online courses may not be assigned to a certain time each day or week right now. So it can be helpful to set a time to complete your coursework each day for each class. Another strategy is to create a dedicated space for learning that's separate from where you relax to help maintain your work-life balance. So avoiding working in a bed or on a couch could be really helpful, since these are places you may relax in and you may want to work in a different space just to keep that boundary. And another strategy is to maintain boundaries respectfully with peers and professors. So just because you're learning online, that doesn't mean that you're required to be accessible to everyone 24/7. So it's a really good idea to be clear with your boundaries with people in your life. And in doing this, it's important to consider when you are willing to be available and when you're able to be available when building your schedule. Thanks, Richard. Next slide. Okay. We also know students have multiple responsibilities on a day-to-day basis and wanted to provide strategies to help manage them all at once. Before COVID-19, it may have been slightly more manageable, but now everything is more uncertain and overwhelming, since it's most likely being done in one location all at the same time. Some current responsibilities that students may have that they're balancing are taking classes, having jobs, having family, friends, and loved ones, and finances, among others. And we want to provide some strategies to help maintain and manage these various responsibilities for each of you. An important strategy, first of all, is to just be self-aware of what you need, because with that comes being able to communicate and advocate for your needs and boundaries to faculty, advisors, peers, employers, family, friends, and loved ones. Time management strategies are really important as well right now and at all times. And there's some things you can do to better manage your time. One of them is, instead of making generalized plans, create a daily individualized plan if possible, with more important and pressing priorities listed at the top. Separate your to-do list by school activities, work, family and social, financial, etc. categories. This can be really helpful in just keeping things separate from one another and not feeling like it's all jumbled together all at once. Another strategy is to break larger tasks down into smaller, more manageable tasks. That way they're more attainable for you and it doesn't feel like you're having to go straight to this big goal. You can start with small steps. That's the best way to approach goals anyway. You can also set deadlines for these tasks while also being flexible to deadline changes. While I know that does sound difficult, and also giving yourself a break if you can't meet each goal and each to-do list item that you have each day. Another time management strategy is to schedule separate times to dedicate energy to school, work, family responsibilities. If that's not possible to completely separate them, then you could also look for overlap where you can be meeting multiple responsibilities all at once. So examples of this could be being in group chats where you can speak to multiple people in your life at once. Or it could be studying or thinking out loud while you exercise. Or it can even be presenting a class project to your family. Just finding creative ways to be able to do multiple things at once and still get things done. Another time management strategy is to work at your mental peak. This one's pretty important because that may be in the morning for you, the afternoon, or the evening. It's really key to find whatever you know works best for you. That way you're able to optimize your time and get things done. And taking breaks is really important to re-energize. You can do this by taking a walk outside or even in your living space. You could do a mindfulness activity. You can engage in self-compassion and other self-care strategies that Udiel and Colleen had mentioned before. And then another strategy to manage all these responsibilities could be to reach out to loved ones for support and tips of how they're doing this. You can maybe get ideas from other people. It'll also help you know you're not alone, like we've been talking through this presentation. And finally, I think one of the most important ones is to be proud of yourself for making it through each day. Because especially right now, making it through each day is a major accomplishment. Okay, thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. So on this second to last slide, we'll just, I won't have time to go into depth with the resources that we provided with y'all, but if this was a collective effort amongst the Counseling Center staff, I would encourage you all to take a look. I mean, there's a ton of resources available on this website, anything from COVID-19 coping and support resources, COVID-19 hotlines. There's a variety of mental health self-help resources, anything from TAO to Sanvello, podcasts and audio tracks and YouTube channels. There are resources for veterans, free telehealth counseling for veterans. And there are Counseling Center recorded presentations for students and webinars for students and faculty and staff, as well as tips for students adapting to online classes, virtual field trips, and live camps. So again, I would strongly encourage y'all to take a look whenever y'all get a chance. Thanks, Richard.
Okay, this is Richard. Thank you so much, panelists, for going over those slides with us. And we definitely have time for some Q&A. So we have about 15 minutes or so. So the first question that we have from a student is, how do we cope with a heightened sense of paranoia when we're going out to stores? So I'm thinking about, even in my own experience, when you see folks kind of like coughing in the aisles, or just this general fear of kind of contamination with others. Do you all have any ideas of how we might cope with that sense of paranoia or fear in those situations that are necessary to be in?
Is anyone feeling like they want to take that one? If not, I can take it too. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna do it. Okay. So I would just say that it's very normal to have that anxiety when you're going into the grocery store right now, especially with all of the media attention. People wearing masks, which is positive, is also like a visual reminder of the potential threat. So I think when you notice, taking a second to notice what your body's doing, and just be present with it. Oftentimes, like if I say, don't think about a red car right now, your brain likely just thought of a red car. So if you say, don't panic, like it, and you're trying to run from those feelings, sometimes they get a little louder, which is just a sneaky little trick our brain likes to play on us sometimes, which is a little rough. Oh, my cat's saying hello. That's okay. All right. And then, so notice your body, and then, accept that in this moment, things are a little scary, but remind yourself that right in this moment, you're safe. You are getting, materials that you need, that you're going to get home. So instead of jumping 10 steps ahead of time about something being contaminated, the things that you can control, like using hand sanitizer, touching like as few things as possible, keeping your distance from people, and just being kind to yourself when that anxiety revs up inside of you. Notice it, like recognize where it might be coming from real threat. And what it likely, may be speaking to is your desire to live, your desire to be a thriving, healthy person, which is a healthy thing. Your anxiety is trying to keep you safe, and it's showing how much you want to be alive. So, having a moment of just accepting that this is the situation right now, and, recognizing what's going on in your body, and then continuing to move forward. So if you need, if it starts to get very overwhelming, and you're starting to experience panic attacks, potentially looking into some alternative options rather than going to the grocery store is a possibility. You don't have to do this alone. But if that isn't the case, and you don't have the possibility of getting things delivered, or you need something right now, not running from the panic and letting yourself feel it, recognizing it for what it is, your survival mechanisms, and then just taking that step forward and knowing that you are going to get through it. It sometimes does feel, it can feel like a heart attack. And it, like, thinking that it's a heart attack is not going to help you in that moment. So just reminding yourself that this is your body trying to basically run from a bear, which in your mind right now might be the virus. It's like there's a bear in every aisle. And so your body doing this is a way, it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to make you be able to bolt out of the door faster, you know, by making you breathe more and getting you all like hyped up. So just recognizing that your body's trying to keep you safe, but instead of catastrophizing and going down that thought process, just knowing that you're safe in this moment and then just keep moving forward. That's the best. I know that's not always the answer people want to hear, but that's what we have.
Thank you, Colleen. The next question I have is one that comes up quite a bit in our work. So what advice or strategies do you have for folks who may have to balance or conceal aspects of their identity and what they can show to others when they're back at home? So let's say someone who's not out and they're living with family who aren't accepting of that identity. Do you have any strategies for coping with that type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult situation, and it's a situation that I definitely see in working with many of my clients. And so I empathize with that struggle so much, as someone who's also queer identified and has also struggled with, homo-negative sort of comments and discrimination. And so what I would encourage you to do is, oftentimes when I'm dealing with this or when I'm working with the client is to really look at how you can keep yourself safe. And so the requirement is never there's never a requirement to present your identity to anybody. That is at your discretion. And so if you're in a public space, I would encourage you to kind of maybe go with a friend if you're able to, or maybe go with a safe companion so that you're not feeling as unsafe in your environment. That's what I would start with.
Thank you, Uriel. So the next question that we have here do our panelists have any suggestions for ways of maintaining accountability besides making a schedule? So if someone's struggling with their motivation and trying to build that schedule that might feel a bit overwhelming in the moment, are there other things that you all might suggest to help with that accountability, and maybe especially with academics? So knowing that it's really important to meet all these deadlines and due dates that are coming up, and being responsible for doing that without the same structure as before. Any ideas that you all might have to accomplish that?
Yeah, other than that schedule that you're mentioning, you can also be reaching out to other people who help you be accountable. You can be setting alarms on your phone to do different things. I think also giving yourself that compassion that you're not going to reach every goal every day possibly. And so forgiving yourself if you don't get there, again, asking others for that support, making a schedule if you can, and again, prioritizing what really does need to be done. That would probably be the key to being able to get what needs to be done on a daily basis, I would say.
Could I add one thing to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just adding some either positive or negative reinforcements for yourself too. So whether that means some cookie dough, I'm just thinking about my lunch, what I did. I don't know what I was celebrating that I had done, but I decided to have some cookie dough at lunch. So have like a fun treat. Also, if you respond better to like negative reinforcement, you could also like do 10 push-ups, or something at the end of the day if you didn't cover your task. And then you can have an accountability partner, like Katie was saying, where you guys it could be like not that exercise should necessarily get correlated with punishment. And maybe that's just me. So I'm just going to retract myself from adding more to that answer. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. Could you all, as a panelist, maybe share some of the ways that you rejuvenate yourself? Full disclosure, all of us on this panel are working from home as well. And so there's been some questions in the Q&A section about some additional strategies to, provide that sense of rejuvenation. And I thought maybe us sharing some of our own tips that have worked for us could be a good way to like spur that discussion further.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, okay. So for me, I think that implementing self-care throughout the day, even while you're working, at least for me, is really helpful. So making like your space joyful, even if it's like having some post-it notes with affirmation or putting little figurines since you are at home that bring you joy. Having those that you can look at can be really helpful and have been helpful for me. And then when I do have a break, I use my lunch break. I reach out to friends. I reach out to family and support systems. And then I think for me, physical exercise has been really helpful too. So after I get my work done for the day, I go outside and I go on like a 70-minute walk just to get outside and get that in. And that all of those things really help rejuvenate me, as well as a lot of taking care of myself at night, like relaxing. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been accessing the bubble bath situation. Did a real full deep scrub of that bad boy. And I've been taking some bubble baths, like lighting candles. I even threw on some Enya. Like I went like next level with my attempts of relaxation. And that was like probably a little extra, but it felt so good just to know that I was taking the time in. Doing some like face masks, just using like all these different lotions that I've had shoved in a drawer that I never thought I'd get to. Just doing some things to make me feel good, like different skin regimens is what I've been doing. And then like, not gonna lie, I've been hitting up that Hulu and Netflix and finding some uplifting shows to watch and like laugh at a little bit has been a good way to do it.
Very jealous of your hot tub. Wish I had one of those.
That was a bathtub, but it's kind of like a bathtub.
Kind of. What I would say to y'all is that this is really just personalized to you. I mean, if try to find ways to continue to do the things that you were doing prior to the pandemic. And so some of the things that I do, and one of the ways that I cultivate my creativity and one of the ways that I take care of myself is by cooking. And I find a lot of joy in doing something like that. I make sure to get like 20 to 30 minutes of sun whenever there's sun. So I realize that right now it's pretty cloudy and raining, so we're not able to do that today. But I go out for a walk. I'm really mindful about my walk. So I'm very present. I look at the nature. I take really hot showers. I read a book. I definitely do what Colleen does: hit up Hulu and Netflix and all that good stuff.
Thank you all. So we'll end with this next question because it seems to be a pretty popular one, which is hearing a lot in the Q&A that folks are struggling with a lack of motivation. So if in energy, decreased energy at this time. So is there any tips or guidance that you all have in terms of increasing one's motivation, increasing one's energy right now, or even to like get the ball rolling on some of these tips? Because I think we've laid out so many really great things, but how could you, what advice would you have in terms of just getting that ball rolling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, if you're not feeling any like motivation when you wake up in the morning, instead of in your brain saying like, all right, I need to get up, I need to write that paper, and I need to do this, this, and this, making your goal a little smaller, like just getting up to take a shower. Like that is all you have to commit to, just to get those feet out of the bed. Even if it's just to walk to the bathroom to use the restroom, because most of the time that's a pretty good way to get you out of bed. And then if you tell yourself, once you get out of bed to use the restroom, like stay out of bed for 10 minutes, whether it's like writing out your schedule for the day, just don't get right back into bed. So even if you can just make tiny little changes like that, like I'm going to have a glass of water and I'm going to take a shower, and that is what I will commit to for this afternoon, can sometimes get that ball rolling where once you can get that momentum going. So instead of thinking of the whole plan, the whole day that you need to do, making tiny little changes, little steps that you can actually achieve and feel good about and get that momentum going.
And just to kind of add to what Colleen said, I think this is a really complex question because it really depends on what we're talking about. But I mean, if I could generally put, you know, oftentimes we become less motivated just in the same way that Colleen was saying, was when the goal is too big, it feels unrealistic or unattainable or unreachable. And so what I would encourage you to do is to really set small, measurable, realistic, and attainable goals. And so what the science says about that is that we are more likely to have a habit stick when we take small, measurable goals versus, you know, I'm thinking of, you know, a New Year's resolution when we aim very high. So, you know, I might say something like, I'm going to exercise every day, 7 days out of the week for an hour. That might not be realistic if I haven't been exercising before that. And so, you know, in that case, I'm not going to feel very motivated. I'm going to feel really tired after that first day. And so I'm going to be less likely to actually engage in that behavior. And so again, you know, and somewhere along the lines of what Colleen was saying is like, maybe I might commit to putting on my gym clothes and not actually going and exercising. And then on the next day, I might put on my gym shoes and my gym clothes. And then the next day, I might actually work out for like 5 minutes, you know? And so really being intentional about that.
And to add to what Colleen and Udiel have said, Colleen already kind of talked about this, the rewards that you can give yourself. And I think that following these really small, measurable, attainable goals, celebrate completing each one as well. And then you can give yourself those rewards. And actually, research shows that when you do engage in activity that you really aren't too motivated to do, there are benefits that come from that are like just intrinsically rewarding. And that can give you that energy to keep going to the next goal and the next small step.
I was just going to add one last thing that I forgot to say before. But remembering the reason why you're doing what you're doing. So if you really want to graduate or you really want to pass this term, rather than thinking, I just need to get through this class to move on, remembering like that you, perhaps the job that you're motivated to have, or making an income after you get a degree, or whatever it is that's motivating you to be in school and to be in these classes, even if you're in a class that feels like you're just jumping through a hoop and it's not something you're actually that into. Just remembering that this will be over and that you just like trying to remember the reason you're even in there can sometimes be more motivating than the actual class or the assignment itself or whatever else it is that you're not feeling as motivated for.
Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, panelists, for your time today. And thank you for all those who are participating and attending our chat. Please feel free to check out our COVID-19 resources website on the it's a subpage of the Counseling Center's website. And thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.